It was supposed to be a big morning. Sophie's first trip without me. She was 8 years old, thrilled out of her mind, and running on orange juice and pure excitement. She kept checking her backpack like it might vanish if she looked away for too long. Headphones, coloring, book. The little stuffed rabbit she refused to leave behind. My parents and my sister family were taking her to Florida. Sunshine, theme parks, the whole picture. I could not get time off work, so I packed her favorite snacks, kissed the top of her head, and told myself, this would be fine. She would be with family. What could really go wrong? At 7:50 in the morning, my mother sent a photo from the gate. Sophie was grinning with her missing tooth, both thumbs up, backpack on, ready for her first real adventure. Boarding soon, the message said. I smiled at my phone, told a coworker my daughter was off on her first trip, and tried to ignore the small ache in my chest. Then, 2 hours later, another message came through. We all voted that she should stay. I frowned at the screen in the middle of a meeting, half listening to someone talk about projections and deadlines. Stay where? It did not even feel serious at first. It sounded like one of my family's strange, cryptic jokes. I put my phone face down and went back to work. I wish I had called right then. I did not. By the time I understood what that message really meant, my daughter was sitting in an airport with a stranger, waiting for a mother who had no idea she had been left behind. The rest of the day dissolved into noise. Emails, conference calls, office chatter. Every now and then I would look at that photo of her at the gate and feel that same pulse of pride again. She was brave. She was fine. Or so I thought. By late afternoon, the office lights had turned the color of old paper. I checked my phone again. No new messages. Of course not. They were supposed to be in the air, halfway to Florida by then. I told myself to stop hovering. But when I finally walked to my car and saw that same unread text still sitting there, something in me shifted. We all voted that she should stay. This time, it felt wrong. Cold. I called as soon as I got in the car. They answered on the second ring, with laughter in the background, and the sound of luggage rolling across tile. I smiled and said, "You made it. Put Sophie on." Then my mother said, bright as ever, "Did you not get our message?" I laughed for half a second, because my brain refused to accept the obvious. I asked what that was even supposed to mean. Then my father came on the line, calm and almost bored, and said Sophie had been acting up, so they decided it was better if she stayed home. The laugh vanished. I asked if they had left her. My sister Amber cut in right away, bright and efficient, like she was solving a small scheduling issue instead of abandoning a child. She told me, relax. She said they had called an emergency child care agency and Sophie was fine. Fine. Then my mother added that it was a good agency, 5 stars on Google, and said they would text me the name. I tried to say more, but she cut me off with something about catching the shuttle. Then the line went dead. For a moment, I just stood there in the parking lot with the phone still against my ear, listening to nothing. Then the silence started ringing. I called back. Voicemail, Dada. I called again. Voicemail, ding. One thought burned through everything else. My child is alone. A minute later, my mother sent a text with a name and a link. No explanation. No apology. Just logistics. When someone finally answered at the child care service, her voice was flat and tired. I told her my daughter had been picked up from the airport by one of their caregivers, and I needed to know where she was. I could hear her typing. Then she said the child had already been collected and was safe. The sitter had taken her home to wait for pickup. I asked for the address. Another pause. More keys clicking. Then it came through by text. A street I did not know, halfway across the city. I drove too fast. Streetlights blurred across the windshield. The wheel felt slick under my hands. Every time I blinked, I saw Sophie sitting somewhere unfamiliar. Small legs swinging, waiting for people who never came back. By the time I reached the address, my pulse had become a steady pounding. The neighborhood looked worn down. One flickering streetlight, the smell of damp pavement. A woman opened the door before I knocked. She took one look at me and asked if I was the mother. When I said yes, she let out a sharp little sound and said we had some nerve, because that child had been there all day. Then she turned her head and called into the apartment. "Kid, your ride is here." Inside, the place smelled like disinfectant and reheated dinners. Sophie was sitting on the couch with her backpack beside her and the stuffed rabbit in her lap. Her eyes looked huge and glassy, too old and too little at the same time. The second she saw me, she ran. I caught her mid-step and almost lost my balance. She buried herself against me and whispered that she had been good and that she waited. I held her tighter and told her she had done everything right. Then she whispered that nobody gave her my number. She had tried calling the number they left, but it kept saying the person could not take calls. The sitter, still standing in the doorway, said nobody had given her my number either. She said she called the one they left, and it only went to a voicemail that could not accept calls. She had tried 3 times. I told her that number belonged to my mother, and thanked her for staying with my daughter. She just shrugged and said she would send the invoice. We left fast. Sophie held my hand all the way to the car, like it was the only steady thing left in the world. The night smelled like jet fuel and rain. She climbed into the passenger seat, still gripping my fingers, and neither of us said much on the drive home. The tires hummed. Her breathing came in small, uneven bursts. That was it. At home, she fell asleep on the couch before I even untied her shoes. I covered her with a blanket and sat beside her. She looked so small again, soft hair against the cushion, rabbit tucked under her chin. My phone glowed on the table beside us. The text was still there. We all voted that she should stay. I kept reading it until the words blurred. They thought leaving her behind was something they could decide together and then forget. They were wrong. A week later, they would learn what it felt like to be the ones left behind. I wish I could say what happened at the airport came out of nowhere. It did not. It was only the loudest version of something my family had been building my entire life. If you grow up in a family like mine, you learn early that fairness is mostly a rumor. I was always the responsible one. Amber was the sensitive one. In our house, that meant I cleaned up the mess, and she got the sympathy. When we were children, I did homework at the kitchen table, while Amber drew on walls with crayons. And somehow I was the one who got grounded. My mother always said it was because Amber was delicate. My father said almost nothing, which in our house counted as agreement. By the time I was 10, I could cook dinner, fold laundry, and tell what mood my mother was in from 3 rooms away. Amber, at 7, still could not pour cereal without making a mess, but she already knew how to get exactly what she wanted. She cried. Mom softened. I ended up apologizing for things I had not done. I learned the rule early. Love was limited, and Amber had the premium plan. In high school, I stopped expecting anyone to notice me unless something broke. I became efficient, quiet, and useful. Teachers loved me. My mother called me reliable, which in her language was another word for boring. When college came, the choice felt simple. Leave or get stuck. My parents paid nothing, except with advice I did not ask for. My mother warned me not to get too ambitious, because men do not like women who outshine them. So, naturally, I got ambitious. Scholarship, double shifts, cheap noodles, the whole overachiever starter pack. Meanwhile, Amber was busy finding herself, which mostly meant finding bars that did not card and men who paid for drinks. She changed majors more than once, dropped out, and eventually married Derek, who still described himself as freelance in a way nobody could clearly define. When I graduated, my mother looked at me and asked whether I thought I was better than everyone now. I did not answer. I was too tired from climbing a ladder she would never admit existed. Years later, I had a steady job, a mortgage, and a husband who actually did his own laundry. Amber had 2 kids, a pile of debt, and a talent for turning every crisis into a shared burden. Whenever rent was late or her car needed work, she called me. She always started with, "I hate to ask," which meant she absolutely did not hate it. And I almost always helped, because I was the good daughter, the one who fixed things. My mother loved to remind me that I made more money than everyone else, as if that somehow turned exploitation into generosity. At first it was little things: utility bills, birthday gifts, short-term loans that somehow never came back. Then it got bigger. Family trips where I paid the deposit, the dinners, and every last-minute moment when someone forgot a wallet on purpose. Amber called it generosity. I called it pressure, dressed up in nicer clothes. Then came the house. Evan and I bought a fixer-upper as an investment, something sensible and adult. Before we had even finished painting the kitchen, Amber showed up crying about her landlord. Broken lease. Nowhere to go. Just for a few months, she said. Amber version in a few months could outlive the calendar. She paid about a quarter of what we agreed, complained about the rest, and still found time to post online about how greedy people do not understand family. Guess who the greedy one was supposed to be? Every time I brought up rent, she had a fresh emergency. Dental bill. Stolen laptop. Lost job that had barely existed to begin with. My mother always took her side. She would say Amber was doing her best. So was I, just apparently in the wrong direction. The one time I tried to stand my ground, my mother accused me of putting money above family. I wanted to tell her this family had been putting me below money for years. But sarcasm does not work on people with no self-awareness. Then came the Florida trip. The supposed olive branch. Amber said the kids would love it, that everyone would love it, but flights were so expensive. Translation was simple. Pay, and we will call it family bonding. I had deadlines stacked on top of each other, and no chance of getting time off. So when Amber offered to take Sophie with them, I actually said yes. It sounded like a solution. Sophie would get her first vacation, and I would get 1 quiet week to breathe. I paid for the flights. I paid for the hotel. I even paid for the matching shirts, because Amber insisted family photos mattered. She meant her family. My mother thanked me like I was donating part of a liver. Amber promised they would take such good care of Sophie. They took my money, my daughter, and my peace of mind, and somehow managed to lose all 3 before lunchtime. Looking back, I should not have been surprised. This was the same pattern, just louder than ever. For years I had been the safety net, the apology, the invisible structure holding everything up. They trained me to believe that saying no made me cruel, and saying yes proved I loved them. But sitting beside Sophie that night, watching her sleep on the couch after crying into my neck, something in me changed. Not anger. Clarity. 7 days after they left Sophie behind, everything started to come apart. She woke up around 2 in the morning crying. The kind of cry that begins quietly like she is trying not to bother anyone, and then breaks all at once. I was out of bed before I even fully woke up. She sat there with tangled hair and wet eyes, and asked me why Grandma did not want her. That one sentence hurt more than every call, every text, every lie. I pulled her against me and told her Grandma did not know how to be good, and that none of it was her fault. She nodded like she understood, which somehow made it worse. When she finally drifted back to sleep, her breathing small and even, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. By morning, the decision had already been made. I just had not said it out loud yet. The house was silent when I got up. Coffee burned on the warmer. Sunlight hit the pile of unopened mail like it was accusing me of being late to my own life. Sophie stuffed rabbit sat on the counter beside my phone. I opened the messages and found the one from my parents again. We all voted that she should stay. The more I looked at it, the more it felt like a dare. Evan was out of town for work, so I did not wait for anyone else's opinion. I opened my laptop and started digging. emails, bank statements, rental records. Every transaction that had been disguised as kindness, but actually translated to you, owe us forever. Then another notification flashed onto the screen. A new charge from the Florida resort. Room service. On my card. They had ordered margaritas on my money after leaving my child at the airport. I laughed, but it was not the kind of laugh that feels light. It sounded like glass cracking. Fine. If they wanted to play with numbers, I would give them numbers. By the time the coffee went cold, I had the files lined up in neat rows across the screen. 36 months of rent discounts. $54,000 they never paid. $3,500 for a vacation I never took. $1,200. For emergency childcare never approved. $58,700 in total. It was not really about the money. It was about the math of disrespect. I called a lawyer friend Evan had used once, a calm man with the kind of voice that sounded ironed. I told him I did not need therapy. I needed a demand letter. He sent me a template and told me to keep it factual, clean, and professional. That part was easy for me. I am very good at professional. I started with the header, outstanding balances. 2 polite words that landed like a slap. I attached the lease, the statements, screenshots of Amber promising to catch up soon. I added a section about the Florida trip and the emergency childcare. Every line was a receipt for a favor they had pretended was free. When I finished, I read it 3 times. No threats, no swearing, just dates, numbers, and consequences. I copied my parents on the email because secrecy is how people like them keep winning. Then I hovered over the button. My hands shook for a second, not from doubt, but from adrenaline. Then I hit send. That sound felt better than applause. The kitchen was still bright from the laptop glow. Across the table, Sophie was bent over a sheet of paper drawing with total concentration, tongue caught between her teeth, the way she always does when she wants something to come out perfect. It was a rabbit this time? Big ears. Backpack. One paw raised in the air like it was waving. I asked what the rabbit was doing. She said it was going home. I watched her color in the sky, with too much blue, the way children always do. And I felt the shaking leave my hands for good. I told her it was a smart rabbit. She smiled proudly and said it was not scared anymore. Neither was I. The day after I sent the letter, my phone lit up like a casino machine. Group, video, call, dial. My mother. My father. Amber. Still in Florida. Palm trees and umbrella drinks in the background. The kind of setting that makes outrage look ridiculous until you hear the voices. My mother started talking before the image even fully loaded. She demanded to know what the email was supposed to be. Amber laughed so hard, she nearly spilled her drink. A bill, really. $58,700. You are hilarious. My father smirked and said I was bluffing, that I just wanted them to feel bad. I let them talk. Sometimes silence does more than any speech ever could. My mother leaned toward the screen and said they did not have that kind of money, and that I made 5 times what any of them did. She asked how I could even send something like that to family. Amber jumped in right after her and asked if I was going to start charging people for oxygen next. I told them it was not guilt. It was math. That changed the room. Their smiles slipped. My mother blinked hard and said I could not be serious. I told her I was. Amber gave this thin, nervous laugh and asked what kind of person sends a bill to her own family. I told her the kind of person who does not forget that they left a child at an airport. Everything behind them seemed to go still after that. Even the noise from the pool faded. My mother tried to grab the moral high ground and said I should not treat family like strangers. I told her exactly. Amber's voice went sharper and accused me of exploiting them. I told her to stop being exploitable then. After that, All three of them started talking at once. Panic has a sound, and it sounds a lot like entitlement when it first cracks. I let them burn through it. When they finally ran out of words, I told them they had 10 business days. Then, I ended the call. The black screen reflected my face back at me. Calm, steady, maybe even bored. It felt good. Not triumphant, just clear. By the next morning, the guilt campaign had already started. Missed calls, texts, voicemails layered with fake concern. My mother message said they were worried about me, that this was not like me. Amber texted something shorter and meaner. She told me to take it back before I regretted it. I ignored every single one. I printed the letter again and mailed a hard copy. If they still wanted to pretend it was a bluff, they could watch the tracking updates like everyone else. The morning they flew back from Florida, my doorbell rang 3 hard times. Sharp and demanding. I opened the door halfway. My mother stood in front, my father behind her. Amber gripping her phone like she was ready to film a public breakdown and call it concern. My mother smiled the way she smiles at waiters. Sweet on the outside, sharpened underneath. She called it a misunderstanding. I told her no, it was not. And this time, I was not stepping aside just to keep the peace. Amber rolled her eyes and said I was only angry about Sophie, and that I should not destroy the family over one incident. I told her they destroyed the family at the airport. That landed harder than anything else I had said so far. Her mouth opened, then closed again, and for once, she had nothing ready. My mother tried another tone, softer, but with the blade still in it. She said I had changed. I told her good. My father sighed and asked if we could go inside to talk like adults. I said I was fine right where I was. Then my mother mask slipped. She accused me of turning my back on my own parents. I looked straight at her and said they left my daughter behind, so I thought we were even. The silence after that was thick enough to lean against. My mother's lower lip trembled, and she said I would regret this. I told her maybe I would, but at least I would regret it in my own house. Then, I shut the door. The latch catching sounded better than applause. The smear campaign started that same night. Amber posted a photo of a drink with some smug line about how money changes people. My mother commented underneath about staying graceful through pain, which was rich coming from a woman who once cried in a grocery store because they were out of her favorite wine. By morning, cousins were texting to ask why I was suing family. I did not answer any of them. I forwarded every message and screenshot to my lawyer. He called that afternoon and said I had a very interesting family. I told him he had no idea. He said he sent a defamation warning and a reminder that public posts can become evidence. Gentle, he called it. Gentle in the way a grenade is technically a small object. Within hours, the posts disappeared. In their place came vague little messages about misunderstanding and healing. Even the emojis looked frightened. Then the real legal match began. For weeks, they swore they would never pay and threatened to fight everything in court. My lawyer did not blink. He sent another letter, dry and devastating, laying out the signed rental contract between Amber, Derek, and me. 3 years of missed payments. Fully documented. Original agreement attached. Her signature right under a monthly rent clause. Bank records showing how little they had actually paid. Then he added the Florida trip, the requests that I cover it because they were taking Sophie, and the evidence that Sophie never even boarded the plane. Each attachment looked like a tiny grave marker for every favor they had tried to rename love. He even included a footnote about the child abandonment incident, phrased as relevant context in the cool language lawyers use when they want to sound polite while ruining your week. After that, the threats stopped. The voices got quieter. My mother called one more time, and this time her voice shook. She asked whether I really wanted all of this to go public. I told her they left my daughter at an airport, and that it was already public in my head. Then she hung up. 2 weeks later, My lawyer forwarded me an email with a subject line that felt almost unreal. Settlement accepted. Large first payment, the rest by installments, all signed and notarized. Evan read it over my shoulder when he got home and said they folded faster than he expected. I told him I was only surprised it took that long. It did not feel like revenge. It felt like oxygen finally coming back into a room that had been closed for years. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Sophie drew beside me. Another rabbit, this one wearing sunglasses and dragging a tiny suitcase. I asked where it was going. She said anywhere it wants. I smiled and told her it was a smart rabbit. The house stayed quiet after that. No calls, no guilt vibrating through the walls. Just space. It has been 3 months now. The payments arrive on time through automatic transfer, which feels more satisfying than any apology they could have forced themselves to say. Every 30 days I get a polite confirmation email that sounds almost funny. Family reimbursement installment received. I do not even check the running total anymore. I just smile and keep going. The rental property finally brings in real money now. New tenants. Real contract. Rent paid in full. Evan jokes that the place is finally earning its keep. I stopped being the family bank and became something much colder and healthier instead. A landlord. Strange how practical can feel so much like peace. With the extra income, we both cut back a little. Nothing dramatic. Just normal hours for once. Evenings belong to us now. We eat dinner together. We talk. We laugh. Sophie is happier. And so are we. Sometimes we sit on the porch with her between us and watch planes cross the sky. She still draws rabbits sometimes. In every picture, they make it home. People always ask whether I went too far. Whether turning family into paperwork and payment schedules was cold or cruel or somehow less human than what they did. I do not think so. I think what feels cold is finally refusing to be used by people who always counted on my guilt to keep the door open. They left an 8-year-old child at an airport. They trusted a stranger more than they respected her mother. They treated my daughter like extra luggage, something you decide not to bring after a vote. Once I saw it that clearly, there was no going back to polite denial. That was the real shift. Not the letter, not the lawyer, not the settlement. The real shift was that for the first time in my life, I stopped mistaking endurance for love. I stopped believing my job was to absorb damage just because I was strong enough to survive it. Sophie never asked for any of this. She only wanted a trip, a stuffed rabbit in her backpack, and the kind of family people keep promising children they have. Instead, she got a lesson I wish she had never needed. Some people will smile for pictures, take your money, and still leave you behind if your presence becomes inconvenient. But she learned something else too. She learned that being left behind is not the same as being unwanted. She learned that home is the place that comes back for you. These days, the house feels different. Lighter. Quieter in the right way. The payments still come. Amber and Derek both work now. My mother stays silent, which may be the most generous thing she has done in years. And me, I am no longer the family rescue plan. I am just a mother who chose the right side when it finally mattered most. So no, I do not think I went too far. I think I finally went far enough. They left my daughter behind, and I left behind the version of myself that kept excusing it. That is not revenge. That is structure. That is consequence. That is love with a backbone. And if I had to do it all again, I would still choose the same thing. My child gets to come home. Everyone else can wait at the gate.